Hey everybody, Andrew Morgan here with two of my best friends, Wes Spencer, CISO of Perch, Karl Bickmore, CEO of SnapTechIT. How are you guys doing today?
Doing great.
Doing awesome.
All right. Well, we are here to talk about vulnerability management, vulnerability scanning, and I couldn't think of anybody that I'd rather talk about it with than you two guys, especially when it comes to the MSP, MSSP market. And Wes, being a practitioner, coming from banking and really understanding security the way you do, I wanted to kick it right to you to talk about why is vulnerability management such a challenge?
Andrew, it is a huge challenge. And I would just start with one of Wes's tenets of cybersecurity, which is this: if you don't know what's in your network and you don't know its vulnerability landscape, you cannot secure it. I mean, that's just a fact of life. You cannot secure what you do not know is running around. And I don't care whether it's the smallest of orgs all the way up to Bank of America, we all struggle with this. And Andrew, I remember early in my banking days, I got this letter from our federal regulators. And it was a notice of warning for one of our third-party vendors. And they had so many egregious security mistakes that they actually sent a letter to all of their customers who are banks, warning banks, you need to be careful about this vendor. And the systemic issue they had was this very large, and if I said their name, you would know it, had networks and networks and networks of endpoints and IP addresses that were never scanned, were never being looked at, and were very, very, very vulnerable. And this is like 2013, so it's not that long ago, but it's one of those unbelievably egregious errors and omissions. And when you look at basically any security framework that's out there or any regulatory framework, whether it's like NIST CSF or it's financial or HIPAA regulations or CMMC, there's a lot of attention that's applied towards not just vulnerability scanning, but what we call vulnerability management, making sure that we're aware of the assets that are network, understanding what their vulnerability landscape looks like, making sure that we've remediated them, that gives us feedback into high, low, medium, even critical vulnerabilities. So we have a pathway of resource assigning to go and fix and correct those things. Because Andrew, it doesn't take any skill set for a bad guy to take advantage of a vulnerability, right? Especially if there's an exploit attached. It's not like I'm some elite hacker that's going after some 0-day. I'm literally just, hey, this is vulnerable and I'm going to exploit it. And it's as easy as that. I mean, that's a fact of the matter. But Karl, one thing that I have been surprised by working with thousands of MSP partners is, until recently, it's amazing that there's this huge gap, not in quality vulnerability scanning, but the ability to have a good scanner and a good vulnerability management program that's built for MSPs, right?
Wes, I couldn't tell you more how nervous it's made me for so long. And I'm so glad that we're finally starting to see some things come on the market that we can work with, because I feel exactly the same. I mean, look, if you have the resources of a large multinational bank and you can't cut it, it's hard to think of an MSP being able to pull it off with their disparate and small to medium to large clients. Whatever the mix is, it's quite the effort to try to put together. So look, it's an evolution here, right? For managed service providers or IT outsourcing companies, we have had remote management tools. We've had PSAs and ticketing systems. We've even had things that can do patch management. We've even been able to do some types of scans. The reality of it is nothing has been easy or good. It's a real problem, and most of us fly blind to it. What we do is we try to patch our Windows clients, and there's not much else you can do from an automated fashion. And so knowing what's out there on the network, not easily done. Even with some of the common MSP tools that say they can, they just don't. The answer's not good. It doesn't work well. And so we've had no good solution here in the managed service channel for quite some time.
Yeah, and Karl, it means something when you say it, right? I mean, you guys at SnapTech have been doing cybersecurity and managed cybersecurity since way before it was the popular thing. I mean, you guys have really taught a lot of the industry how it's done. And so when I hear that directly from you, it means something, right? Because you've been doing this for a long time, right?
Yeah, well, the key thing is it's difficult to scale, right? I mean, there are tools out there that can do vulnerability scanning and meaningful assets and tell you what's on your network. They just are built for the enterprise, and they're not multi-tenant. They don't scale. it's really difficult for us to find ways to get that into every client in a consistent and standard way. And so we struggle.
And, Karl, and you talk about, the small to medium business. I mean, in reality, when you look at a company like yours and like other MSPs, a lot of them are small enterprises or even enterprises, running, 5,000, 10,000 endpoints under management. And then what I'm seeing, day in and day out here, I really am focused on the vulnerabilities these days, is when these exploits come out, it's not long before you hear about in the wild. And Wes, for those of you out, for maybe people looking in here that might not know what that means, could you just briefly talk about that? And,
Yeah, absolutely. So, bad guys are highly operationalized today, right? They're as aware, if not more aware than we are of the vulnerability landscape. In fact, they're involved oftentimes as much in discovering some of these things that we then find after the fact and build vulnerabilities and patching for, right? Like vulnerability notices, like CVSSs and all that kind of stuff. So this is a big deal. Bad guys are highly efficient and very quick to operate. And so this is why when we have these things like a high risk vulnerability that comes out and it hits the news and it's something that we're seeing systemically, you've got to take action on quickly. I'm aware of some vulnerabilities that have happened. Like you look at some of the recent ones that have happened, like zero logon, you've seen some of these things get operationalized within a few days. And we see at Perch scanning activity and awareness around that within sometimes even in some cases, Andrew, even before the vulnerabilities come out. I remember like a good example of that, Citrix, and not to pick on any vendor, we all have vulnerabilities like belly buttons, right? We've all got them. But I remember when the Citrix stuff came out, we saw scanning activity and actual exploit activity before the patches were even announced by Citrix for about 2 to 3 days prior. So yeah, bad guys are as operationalized as anybody and very, very quick on the draw.
Yeah, very interesting. Karl, go ahead.
I think that one thing that's really important to point out about that, though, is that, protecting yourself against those, it's all about time is of the essence, no doubt about it. The reality is there's a mountain of vulnerabilities that have been known about for a long time that people have in their networks that they're not patched for because they have no idea that they're there. And so, it's about the latest and greatest, but it's also about the big pile of stuff you should be taking care of that, that vulnerability came out 2 years ago. There's really no excuse. And I could tell you, a customer coming to me saying, hey, this was out 2 years ago. Why didn't you patch for it? I mean, sure, maybe a 0 day you didn't get to within seconds, but this has been out for 2 years. And I can't tell you how often when we go into a network and scan it, we're finding stuff that hasn't been patched for years.
Karl, could I just say something too here? What's interesting, we have a lot of guests on some of the things that we've been doing. And we had somebody that was an expert in the cyber insurance industry. And one of the things you just said that, just threw up my antennas is if you are ever called to task in a court of law, what they do is if you got a good opposing attorney, they're going to go, Karl, let's take a look at your customers. Why is it customer A, customer B, customer C have that vulnerability all patched, but C, D, E, and F don't? And that's unfortunately, Wes, I know you're shaking your head. Why is that so critical? And why is that the way the attorneys operational, come at it?
I have some thoughts while you're thinking, Karl. One is this: as an MSP, you inherit the risk profile of the new clients you take on. That's first. So this is different than any other industry. If I'm in Karl's shoes, every time I bring on a new client, there's a reason they're coming to SnapTech, because SnapTech knows what they're doing. They've had frustrations before, they've had risk concerns, whatever it was with their former MSP. Well, when Karl takes them on, he inherits the good and the bad and the ugly from it. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is, I think sometimes we have a lot of partners that I work with, maybe not a lot, but some have this tiered approach of like, hey, these guys are paying a lot more. These guys are just time and materials. And so you have like older clients that are still hanging around, that are sort of like, the black sheep of the family, so to speak, that don't get the controls, don't get the hygiene that you need to add on top. Karl, what do you think?
Yeah, I thought Andrew threw it to you, so I was like, when's Wes going to answer? Hey, look, this is the next wave that the next hole that we can fill, right? This is the thing. And I tell you, when we take on customers, like we've had some pretty interesting experiences where once we bring on a customer, we realize that there's risk, not only for us with this customer, but that risk could then find its way into our tools and find its way to our other customers and our own information. And so when we come into a network, we have to think it's already compromised. That's our starting standpoint. And the vulnerabilities have to be closed out. There's just so much to it. But what I'm glad to talk about today is there's something that we've done to solve this issue. And that's one of the things I wanted to drive you guys through today, is talk about this new product called CyberCNS, because this is a tool that I think is going to be a really useful tool for anybody trying to solve these problems. The key piece to this is I got involved in the development of this product some time ago, and it was a decent vulnerability scanner at the time, but it didn't have some of those key elements that MSPs really need. And so I got to talking to the development team, and I became involved in the organization, and we began a rapid process of making it good for MSPs. And early on, I talked to the people involved with me, and we said, hey, let's put this out there into the public and have other MSPs help us. I like the idea that this is now a product that is by MSPs for MSPs. So many of the enhancements came directly from the feedback of a large group of managed service providers that were willing to take the journey with us to get here. And so the product we have today solves so many of the problems of being able to both provide good vulnerability scanning, which is really difficult to do, and also make it friendly for the budget, for the operations, and for the reporting needs, all the things you need as an MSP. And so I'm pretty excited about it. It's allowed me to shed other tools that I have, reducing my cost actually significantly, and it's not expensive to begin with. And then secondarily, it's providing a better result. And so I'm pretty excited about it. I feel like this product is very hot and exciting I'm excited to be a part of it, and I'm excited to be a part of a community that's building such a tool.
Karl, can you take us through it a little bit? And you mentioned, I think it's something like 5 to 6 months that you've been involved with, like about 50 or so, not just MSPs, but I know there's some very seasoned MSSPs that have used some of the most, prolific enterprise tools that, you got some, black and blue marks on this, but it's really paid off, I think, huge. So I'd love for you to show us it.
Well, so there's some key features that I just think are important to talk about to make sure that we all understand. One is that this is a highly capable vulnerability scanning tool. It works across all the operating systems. So you're going to see Windows, Mac, Linux. You're going to see switches, wireless controllers, firewalls, printers, various IoT devices get scanned and correctly noted for their vulnerabilities, which is awesome. It's multi-tenant. One of the real pieces that a lot of the MSSPs didn't know that there's great tools out there for is it has some really cool Active Directory scanning that it does to help you with your policies, your user account management, the password settings, the enabled users versus inactive, so forth, so on. There's some other great features as well that I just want to highlight, things like a firewall vulnerability scan against the SANS Institute known configurations of vulnerabilities. It'll do SSL evaluations for you. But the thing that my guys love about it is we can get access to a system or put a computer in a customer environment. We can deploy in less than 15 minutes and begin scanning. And so that's a really big deal. So let me go ahead and bring up our demo environment here, and let's take a quick look at it. I hit the wrong button, perhaps.
That's all right, Karl. And while you do that, I think what's other noteworthy, Karl, is there are various ways in which you scan and discover the assets, meaning there could be complete network scans. There could be what we call lightweight agent scans. There's dissolvable agent scans from work from home environments. This isn't just a one size fits all type system. This is truly built to handle all different types of environments. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, no doubt. And so there's a site scanner that you want to drop in as kind of like the main point, and it does a lot of the network stuff. But then after that, it's how do you get to the remote location or somebody working from home? Or how do you get to a hardened machine that maybe doesn't like a scan coming in? What are some of the easy ways? Well, dissolvable agents solve that. Lightweight agents solve the remote, or other systems that are not easily deployed, say through an Active Directory model. There is a lot of choices, and that's really this scanning technology was a direct result of the conversations we had with the other MSPs and MSSPs. And they're saying, hey, in this other tool I use, this is how this works. And we looked at it and said, this is a feature set that we can really build. And our development team has been phenomenal. I mean, they've got a lot of experience in the industry and a lot of experience understanding MSPs, but also in this vulnerability space. And so it's been a fantastic time. Let's take a quick look through the CyberCNS. This is, of course, a test database without real customer data. So because of that, we really only have one customer in here. But one quick thing to point out at the beginning of the top of this is that when you're first opening up and hitting the dashboard, this is collective data about across all of your companies, where you can look at executive summary, assets, vulnerabilities, what jobs are firing and not firing in the Active Directory. I'm going to get into an individual company for this demo more, but there are also some nice reports up here that you can look quickly at assets and vulnerabilities in the upper right here across all customers in one place, which is a kind of a nice way for you to pop in and be able to get a good overall picture of what's going on. But once you drop into the individual company interface is when you get to the kind of the main pieces you see. This is the first view here is the asset view. And as you can see, you're seeing all the various operating systems that are found, and you're seeing them being tagged for the importance levels. One of the things that I did just as some fun in some test databases, I added a custom tag to this particular desktop. A very powerful feature I have not really seen in a lot of other things is you can create tags and use them in custom reports. So you could create a report of everyone that shows, the Karl tag as an example, but maybe a more important use of that is a tag that says customers decided to accept risk on this particular PC, so that you can then filter it out of a report or have a report of just the machines where risk has been accepted. Because occasionally you'll have clients that say, okay, we're not going to be able to address that, and it will affect your reporting. So you can tag those. You can tag it based on, location, or help people understand, the functionality of the system. There's so many things that's completely custom. And there's lots of different methods of discovery it can use, things like WinRM, WMI, the zero scanning methods, the Active Directory scanning. There are many protocols it can use, and that's what these over here are indicating, is that how it reached that particular system for its scanning. So the regular agent is the R, I think the A is the Active Directory, found as a computer in Active Directory, but it scans over several protocols to find the various things that are out there and available. And you can add details or look into the details. If it's a firewall, you can implement a firewall scan, and you can also pick a machine to be suppressed, so it won't show up on the list. Or once again, you can edit and add tags. So that's kind of the core thing when you very first drop into the interface. Then you can look, once again, we're at an individual company view here, but you can come in here and look at how it works for just one company. What are their common vulnerabilities? What's their ranking, critical, high, medium, low? And it gives a risk score for this. There's also network vulnerabilities that can be found, things around SSL certificates, insecure protocols, SMB version 1 being enabled. And along with these things comes some good little descriptors that help you understand what that is and why it's showing up on the list. And so there's just a couple of things for you to look at right there from a network vulnerability. Another really nice piece of this is the system will generate some remediation plans for you, and it will rank these based on risk and give you ideas of how soon it should be addressed. And so this can really help your team understand, hey, if you work on this particular vulnerability, you're going to be able to kill these risks and things that are out there, and it should be prioritized. As you notice, this one says to patch immediately. There is also a notify feature that you can turn on, which I haven't got any integrations configured here, but that can cause it to fire off a ticket into your ticketing system, or an email that can go wherever you want an email to go. And you can automate those as well. But the key points is this remediation plan helps you kind of get a look at where your best places to go are. There's also a job screen, and bear in mind, this is a test database, so we only kind of stood this up, and we're only getting a few things running at the moment in the test, but this shows you how your scanning jobs are going, how it's working, what it's finding. If there are issues with it, you can kind of get into that as well. Moving on, if you've configured the customer to link to the Microsoft tenancy, you also can see their Microsoft security score. You see this particular organization is ranked 112 points out of the 238. One of the things I love here, and this should be a big red flag for everybody, if you ever saw this, you can see they have 100 licensed users, only 3 are active, so 97 have been purchased. They're paying for, they're completely unused. Now that's a dramatic example, and this is test data, right? But the point is this can be a great way for you to know when your customers are overpaying and help them adjust their licensing correctly. Customers love that. It also shares with you what services are enabled with the Microsoft Office 365 or the Azure services. And then it gives more detail on what made up the score. And then even further down, score breakdown with more detail and the categories that they fit into. So there's a lot to look at in here, but what a great thing to have in one place, not only scans of your network, but also the Active Directory, the Office 365 piece. And so that's a really great functionality feature set. The next thing to drop in on real quick is the reporting. Now, we've written a lot of reports here already, but I expect this to be a growing and ever developing, and this is an area where we love feedback. And so if you have a report you'd love to see, we'd love to hear about it. But we've written a lot based on the feedback we've already got of things I was looking for my company, but also our partners that were part of the building of this process, of this tool. And so it's simple as downloading a report and taking a quick look at it. So you can grab things like a security report card. And I'm going to get this over to the right screen here. It's opening up in Word, by the way, so that you can edit or change it in ways that if you like. You can also set up custom branding, but here's an example of a very quick security summary scorecard where it's going to list your systems and give you some things based on ranking and how it's going to score the overall organization based on that. And this is just an example of one of the many, many reports that you can get out of this particular tool that can actually really help you turn this into actionable meetings with your customers where you can create plans and projects to remediate and meet the customer's needs from a reporting standpoint. External vulnerability reporting, of course, there are internal, external scanning of this tool. You can even see failed logins for your own tool, the CyberCNS, as you're looking into the management of the tool itself. There's some really great things about listing all of the installed applications for those that are looking for a great way to do that. There's also an application whitelisting and blacklisting that you can set up that will allow you to run reports when things are installed that you don't want, or make sure that things you want installed are, as an example. Some really nice PowerPoint presentation here that gets kind of generated as one big picture for the customer. And some other great things are the Active Directory reports we're looking at here, password policies, the users, the computers, the groups, the organizational units, the GPOs in use. And then the other thing that I tend to use a lot as I'm working through it is running these out as Excel files that you can kind of manipulate, rank, and organize and help present it in a way that it makes it easier to create action plans and gap analysis from. And so these are some of the great reporting functionalities you get at the company level that's going to turn it into a tool that allows you to not only manage your vulnerabilities and rank things, but also communicate with your customer and with your team what's going on at that particular customer. So that's an example of the customer view, an individual company. You can also view this through the vulnerability lens, all customers or one customer at a time. Once again, there would normally be a drop down of many customers here if you had them installed, but we only have one in the temp database here. That's just beginning the process here. Andrew, did you have a comment there? Looked like you wanted to jump in.
Just wanted to say, Karl, one or two things. One, you obviously clicked as if there were a number of companies there. I think one of the feedback we got was there's a reason there's a 53 next to that customer, because if you had 100 customers in there, which many people do, and the way the licensing model works, which is incredibly friendly, you would see a ranking, and your best customers versus your most vulnerable customers. And that was one of the feedbacks we got, that the MSPs and MSSPs wanted to be able to, in a heartbeat, to go, okay, who is at the most risk right away from a vulnerability perspective. So that's why.
And you know why that's so awesome? Like, we always talk about peer analysis. Like, you'll hear me mention that all the time. One of the greatest ways to get anybody to care about anything is showing them where they stack up with their peers, right? If I'm meeting with my financial analyst and he's my advisor and he's telling me, hey, you're like 30% below your peers at your age and where you should be. Oh no, I need to invest and make that happen and fix that. If I'm doing way better, I'm going to go brag about it, right? Yeah. And so for partners, I'm sure, Karl, you guys use that exactly to talk to clients about how they stack up, right?
Yeah, no doubt. In fact, you're so right about the people want to know that they're doing at least as good as other people. They love knowing if they're doing better, and if they're not doing as good, it's something that typically motivates them. And so it is a really great way to have a conversation and say, hey, at least you're doing what others are doing. I'll be frank, though, when I'm talking to my customers, I have to drive a high standard. And so I like to say, what most people do, but then there's what our customers do, and here's how you rank against that. And the reality of it is it's all about risk management. It's all about risk avoidance, and minimizing. And vulnerabilities is just a big piece of that a lot of us have no visibility into. And so the next piece to kind of take a tour on in the product is the external scan feature, where it runs a scan from a total external standpoint. In this particular time, we typically do these unauthenticated so that we're getting a look at what a hacker looks like when they're looking at your external IP addresses, and we get to see what ports are open and what is the vulnerabilities that are related to the things that it can connect to. And so in our test database here, we have one that's running. And you can see that it's giving a vulnerability count and an SSL grade right here, and that it's run. You can see the updated date on it. All that's a fantastic quick snapshot that you can look at. But the key thing is you can also, as Andrew alluded to earlier, is you can kick off a scan like right now on the fly if you want. But you can also change the scan type. There are two different types of scan. There's one that's scanned for, most commonly known, more considered like a lightweight scan, not quite as intensive. And it's also a lot more friendly on the customer's equipment, that it might not overwhelm it or might not cause things to trigger as easily. Or you can do a full scan, which is a full port scan of all ports. And I love that flexibility. That is an incredible option to be able to do that back and forth at different times. And you of course, can schedule these up. So once you're, looking at a machine, you can get a report here and you can see a lot of things about, okay, here are the external vulnerabilities on this particular machine, and you can read about these again, seeing more detail and information of what you may want to do with it, and decide what the priority is. You also get a list of the open ports. You can look at whether they're compliant or not compliant. Another great thing is the difference with previous scans, so you can see how things are changing. Another key point is the scan history can show up, so you can look through different scans as they occur. The SSL report is another fantastic option where not only is it seeing that port's open and vulnerability on the equipment itself, but it's now analyzing the value of the SSL system, where you can find out if you've got the poodle or the heartbeat or the hard bleed, the freak, the logjam, or the drown vulnerabilities that are well-known and well-exploited vulnerabilities of SSL encryption. And it'll give you information about that SSL certificate and help you know what the things are that are open. And another great thing that we've been working very hard on eradicating TLS 1.0 in our network of any of our customers, which has meant things like can't use Windows 7 and Server 2008 anymore, only R2. But it also means that firewalls have to be configured as such. You can see the ciphers in use as well. And so this is so much more than you typically get in a simple external vulnerability scan. And it's meaningful. And we found that this has turned some great conversations with our customers. You can also create rules where you look for certain things and tag them based on those rules. So you can really create your own custom set of how you want information to be taken and found. And of course, once again, a job review. So that's just a quick glance through. There is also an external scan report that you can provide to the customer that you can do. And so, but just driving through it, you get a feel for the type of information that's out there.
Karl, as you move on to probably alerts and baseline application baseline, I think it's important also to point out that we've got some big MSPs and MSSPs that have been using this that are in co-managed environments, and because of the way the role-based security has been put in place, maybe you could talk just briefly about that and why that's important for some of your big customers that have IT teams.
Right. As you're getting down to the settings of the users, you can create roles. You can see certain areas. You can restrict to certain companies. We do have a lot of co-managed customers as well, and they've got some great IT people. And frankly, sometimes to engage with those customers, they need access to the tool set, if for nothing else, for oversight. Sure. But the ability to provide customer access or just restrict even within your own technician base, certain people only access certain customers, that can be great from a compliance standpoint from time to time, depending on qualifications and locations of people and whatnot. But the ability to create roles and to have users, and there's really, you don't have to pay per user or anything. Do as much as you like. It's really unrestricted. It's up to you to create that system, but you have a nice role-based access control that allows you to do that. So popping through the system, I could probably talk about this for 5 hours straight. So I'm going to keep moving quickly as I can, not try to bore people. But the alert system is something else where you can create specific things that you can have, and it will tell you about things that are not working out there. Like for instance, in this test environment, that those test systems, when the scan went to run, the Active Directory object collector happened to be offline. And so you can kind of see when things are updating and manage and make sure things are rolling. Now, in a test environment, we're probably seeing more failure than you would, than I know we see in ours. But that's just an example where you can see some of those alerts that are out there. Another key piece, and I alluded to this before, I really have not found a good tool for doing this in a meaningful way in the MSP space. And that's allowing you to create application baselines and then create rules where you can say if it's above or below this, then it's going to affect a report or allow you to do reporting on things like whitelisted or blacklisted or approved or denied applications and have some meaningful things on it. One of the cool things about this is you can kind of look at a report card. Here's an example. This is just inside the application, but there are reports to do this as well. So you can say, hey, this rule here, PuTTY is a secure shell tool, obviously. And you can say, oh, these machines have PuTTY installed, and that's on my denied list. And then on the missing allowed applications, meaning applications that you want them to have, I can also say, oh, look, there's this NEDS software supposed to be on these machines, but they're missing from them. Think of the power of that. Like for me as an MSP, just making sure that my agent is deployed and making sure my endpoint protection is deployed. There are no good tools to do that until we had something like this where we could actually create rules that just help me make sure my tool penetration is good.
Well, hey, Karl, I'm going to point to Wes on this. Wes, hey, we've got all these remote workers now. What about, if I work for a bank and I'm using something at home, I decide to install Box or Dropbox, or, what is the implications of that if I don't have an easy way? Maybe I don't have a system like a Perch and a SIM telling me, oh, by the way, someone just installed this. How powerful is that?
Yeah, I mean, if there's two words that by themselves don't really scare us, but put together really scare us, how about these two words? Shadow IT.
Right.
Right? Karl, I know you're laughing and grimacing because it's not just enterprise that struggle with that, even more so it's MSPs. Not because they're doing anything wrong, but yeah, I mean, you're exactly right. Andrew, when you talk about this work from home and pandemic, like employees are going to get done what they need to get done from a job perspective. And if there's something that gets in their way and they're not getting an answer, they're going to work around. And oftentimes that workaround means shadow IT. I was on a call with a partner yesterday who was struggling because they're starting to see Dropbox proliferate everywhere. Not that Dropbox is evil and bad, it's just not supported. And they were like, we are really worried about this because the PII implications of what's trading around and floating around. They're like, we feel again that we inherit that risk, right? So yeah, exactly. I think this is a huge piece and typically something really missing for partners to have a good handle on what is installed that shouldn't be and what's not installed that should be.
Yeah, it's once again, we've never really been able to get there with our RMM tool in a meaningful way. We've worked on it hard, and until we had something that can scan outside of our tool and tell us what's installed and what isn't installed, we just found it difficult. And the best thing is the custom reporting and the alerts that you can create off of that. And so there's a lot of things you can do to make this meaningful, and it makes it so much more than just a simple vulnerability scanner, because now I can validate my tool sets installed, or if a customer, we all have that customer that has that really unique software build, and if something gets missed by our guys, skipping a step in the SOP because that customer's a little weird, well, this can help us figure that out and hopefully catch it before it gets delivered to the end user.
Carl, talking about Software. No, please. I just want to say real quick, since we're talking about software, one of the things that we get asked a lot about through this process is, hey, is it just hardware and things like that for vulnerabilities, or are we checking for software vulnerabilities?
Yeah, you'll get patching notifications. You'll be able to look and see in the reports, if Adobe has got a vulnerability going because of the version they have installed. And so, yeah, there's some deep application scanning stuff that happens as well, as long as you've given the scanner the right authority within the network to go and find those machines and access them at that level. I mean, for us, it's a limited Active Directory role that has some administrative function that the scanner uses that allows us to get that information back. But it's valuable information. One of the great ways you make a lot of this stuff actionable is by creating notification roles. And I've opened up the exact screen for this. I don't have examples in here. But you can create pretty much on any field, whatever setting you want, and then you can create an alert notification method. Now, there are different integrations. A lot of us are going to kick this out as an email or a ticket, an email to a ticketing system or directly to a ticketing system. You can send this to things like Teams and Slack channels as well, because those integrations are available. I'll show that integration screen here in a little bit. But basically, you can really create a nice set of custom notifications that do exactly what you want to do and get it right into your actionable stuff that you and your team use, like into your ticketing system. That's what I see when I look at that, but you can really use it for anything you want. Once a condition is noticed, what do you want it to do? Send an email, you open a ticket, so forth, so on. There is also a report section, which is meant to reiterate many of the same reports I showed on the company level before, but these reports also can run across all customers, which is an interesting way to view. So as you get more and more customers in here, you can run them for individual companies, or you can run them across the board, which is kind of nice to know where you might have problems rolling up against many customers at one time, patches that are consistently problematic. So it's really the same list of reports that we saw before, but you have the ability to run it at the different scope here. Another really neat piece is you do have the ability to run some custom reports where you can kind of pick and choose and combine elements of reporting in any way you like, put custom branding on it as well. You can custom brand the other reports, but you can do it differently here. You can do them per customer. You can do lots of things inside the custom reports. And we did get in and create one for you, so you can take a quick look at what that report looks like. I'll download it real quick and then bring it up to the screen. So here's an example of just a custom report where a logo was added. We picked the specific things adding to the mix here that we want to look at. This is asset details table, some assets in graph, basically, the same information, but in a different graph on that data. Assets by summary, just showing the different ways and tools that you can create reports with. And so custom reporting is a nice added feather in the cap that can allow you to build things really exactly how you want. As we get into the security of the product, though, it's important to note that security was built in mind with this product. And so we have login auditing occurring of all the logins to CyberCNS. You can audit the system as well and see changes that have happened. There are global settings roles, like, for instance, you got to set up the secure score integration, as we were talking about, in order for that to work. There are integrations, as we talked about before. General webhooks can be used for just about anything, Teams, email. There's a ConnectWise PSA integration for ConnectWise Manage, Jira. So some really great integrations, and this is only going to grow as we're just getting started in this area. You can also configure multi-factor authentication for security into the system, and then there's always the place where you can download your agents. By the way, agents that work on Linux, Windows, the Docker agent, a lot of the MSSPs we've been working with have devices that are running on small appliance units, and they're using the Docker solution to put a scanner on site for an assessment or for an ongoing customer need. But that's kind of like the whirlwind tour of what the product can do for you. We've kind of hit all the major areas. And so just think for a minute what it would mean if you had that level of visibility into all your customers and it wasn't expensive. Think of how this differentiates you from the other MSPs who haven't even gone down this path, that are still just slinging out RMM and that's it. Think of the things you're going to see that they're not going to see. Think of the risk that you're going to reduce for yourself, and think of how this can raise your game in the security field to really, really add to the legitimacy of a security offering that you might be putting out there.
Yeah, it's excellent, Carl. And I think it's always important, because as a consumer, I think it's important to talk price. Let's just briefly talk about how you guys architected the price on this. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're talking 3 buckets basically. There's a custom one if you're big enough, but you're talking, just to run down it for us, Carl, starting with the, up to 2,500 IPs, as many scans, doesn't matter, we obviously are aggregating, there's no reporting features, there's no add-ons, but kind of just walk through the pricing model. It's phenomenal.
Well, I have to admit, I'm not familiar with it enough to be able to tell you where the lines are, because it's something that was based on feedback, but I can tell you the principles of it.
Yeah.
We did not want this to be expensive. We know that there are other tools out there that do bits and pieces, but nothing near as comprehensive as this. We know at their pricing, and our goal is to come in under those tools so that people could leave other tools aside and get something that's cheaper and way better. That was the model, and it's an unlimited model. And so once you get this in there, there's no restrictions on user accounts. You can run as many scans as you like, schedule it up as much as you want. And it's basically built on the number of IP addresses or endpoints that you work with. And so there's 3 scales to that, an A, B, and C price. As you grow, you get into different tiers and how that works.
Well, I'll run through them for you, Carl, because I know you're busy, just so everybody knows. So 2,500 IPs, $299, whether you host it yourself or it's in the cloud. Up to 5,000, it's $499. By the way, it's per month only. $299, $499 up to 5,000, $999 up to 10,000. And then if you're a really big MSP, and we have some really massive ones, some with 30, 40, 50,000 IPs, we have some custom stuff there. But again, just really well done, Carl. I'm very excited for you guys that you have been able to put this together.
Hey, and coming out of the enterprise space, that pricing, that's a no-brainer. I mean, as Carl said, it's not just like, and I'm just going to throw a name out there, like Nessus, that does a lot of this, but not all of it, way higher pricing, not built towards the channel. I can just tell you as a practitioner, this is as much a no-brainer as you got, right, Carl?
You look, it's A, less expensive, and B, better. What more can you ask for, right?
Yes.
And it's the direction we all need to be going in, which is better security, providing a better identity value to our customer, better ability to know what assets they have, what's actually installed, a check of your RMM tool, a validation of your tool. It's so much better to have something like this going. And I just don't think anybody else has filled this hole. I'm sure that someday there will be competitors coming along, but as of now, I think nothing else is filling this hole in the MSP space.
Wow. Awesome, Carl. Well, Wes, any closing thoughts and comments? Carl, I thought that was really comprehensive. Wes, love your perspective as a practitioner.
Look, there is value all through this, not just value in terms of like operational efficiency, not just in terms of being able to understand what your vulnerabilities and risks are, but like Carl, you mentioned this multiple times, there is value in how you communicate to your end user, to your client, the peer analysis, the Microsoft scores, all of those kinds of things make it easier for us to communicate with our clients the value that we are providing. That is immensely important because we know, as well as everyone else, they're not using us as an IT provider because they have to understand everything. They just want to know there's value for what they're paying for. And what a great way with CyberCNS to make that possible.
Well, here's my challenge. Look, there's a free trial. It takes you all of about an hour to get it set up, or you don't even do the work. You just request it, then you can log in. It takes you another 15 minutes to run that scan inside your network. Obviously, run it through your change controls, making sure that everybody's alive. But it's very easy to do. It's very safe. It's passive in what it's doing. Just run it on yourself. Get it out there and just see what you've got running on your own network. Get that trial going. It doesn't take long. It's not like you got to spend weeks running it and scanning and doing these things. Just take one customer, one prototype customer, or one test network or your own network, run that scan and see what you think. Because the results you get will A, probably be eye-opening, and B, you might start realizing there's a whole world of vulnerability management that you're not doing, that your customers probably are expecting you to. And frankly, will differentiate you and make it easier for you to sell security services or just to be a better MSP that differentiates out there in the field.
Wes, I got to close with this. You guys are distributing the product here in the U.S. People can go to Perch Security and get a download of it, do the trial. But any thoughts on that and why you guys decided to?
Yeah, it's pretty simple. The big reason that we wanted to do it, we had so many customers asking us, hey, what about vulnerability management? I love what Perch is doing around log reviews, SOC as a service, SIM, it all is awesome, but I still need to solve this hurdle. Like we mentioned from the very beginning, an integrated hurdle in every single framework and regulatory guidance is vulnerability management. We're hearing this, we're hearing this, we're hearing this. And we looked at building our own, we looked at, outsourcing to somebody else. And at the end of the day, we just weren't comfortable with anything we saw. And in conversations with you, with Karl, with others that are on the leadership team of CyberCNS, I mean, look, not only do you guys know the industry better than anybody I know, we saw what the product was doing. We saw how it works. We saw where it was going. We said, hey, we definitely want this to be considered just a standard offering inside of Perch. And so while you can certainly get it by itself, we have so many of our partners now that are getting both together because it's really a component that's honestly essential. And I can say that without myself being somebody that makes this product, right? I'm pretty unbiased here. And so that's why we are all about this as a distribution channel for our clients and for the clients of CyberCNS. Yes, so just reach out to us through Perch. Be happy to get you set up and get that running for you because look, it is really, really important. And it is a tool that can't be left out in your security services and the portfolio of services you offer.
Go Perch.
Go CNS.
Well, I think it's a privilege to be with you guys, Wes. I got a lot of respect for you and the Perch team as well. We're really excited to be a part of what you guys are doing. I think it's phenomenal. We're big fans of the Perch product as well, and we use it in conjunction with this tool. And we're just glad to be working with you guys. It's awesome.
Right on.
All right.